Hello there, it's Carlton Read here, and you're listening to Cycling News and Views podcast. And today it's August the 12th, but I guess you're listening to this on August the 13th. I'm on the Phil and Friends ride in the Peak District, and I'm labouring up the hill towards Stannington, which is where the ride starts and finishes. And right now I'm on a road where there are lots of thick white lines telling car drivers that they can't overtake at this point. But of course, they overtake. And if they don't overtake over the white lines, then they come so close to you. So, what does that got to do with anything? Well, there's a case at the moment with Daniel Cadden, who was fined £200 plus £100 costs just recently, which could open all sorts of nasty precedents in the future for the right of cyclists to be on the road. What I'm witnessing here right now are cars being illegal, overtaking when they shouldn't. I mean, there's lots of cyclists on the road, but technically Daniel Cadden was done for the same reason, but he was done for obstructing the cars, which is obviously crazy. Now, this Phil and Friends ride is for Phil Liggett, run by Phil Liggett, the president of the CTC, and of course the voice of cycling, and it's been going for 6 years, and it's to in aid of the Cyclists Defence Fund, which is a fund which helped Daniel Cadden in unfortunately his lost court case, but hopefully there's going to be an appeal. So early this morning I talked to the CTC's Yannick Read, who's the CTC's PR officer, and the Cyclist Defence Fund of course is linked to the CTC. And I also talked to Phil Liggett, who was here on his own ride. So here, first of all, is Yannick Read.
I'm here to film the intrepid riders taking part in the Phil and Friends today. And the weather's a little bit grim, but people are making a start, and hopefully they'll all get around okay.
Now, some of the money that's raised from people's entries today goes to a certain charity. What's that charity?
The Cyclist Defence Fund, which is a charity that was started, it's an independent charity now, but it was started by CTC to help with legal matters, so to fight on behalf of cyclists who either been involved in collisions and recently come into the news.
Because of the Daniel Cadden case?
Because of the Daniel Cadden case, yeah. Just to kind of tell a little bit about what happened. Daniel's a very experienced rider who's riding down a road, and he had assumed what's known in cycle training terms as the secondary position, about a metre out from the side of the road. There's a solid white line down the middle of the road, and a couple of cars overtook him illegally, crossing the white band. The third car was a police car. He was stopped and told by the police officers that he shouldn't have actually been on the road. He should have been effectively in the gutter to the left of a solid band on the left of the road. Daniel took issue with them and found himself in court on a charge of inconsiderate cycling. He came up in front of the judge, who went further than the police officer and said, actually, there's a cycle path, a segregated path on the other side of the road. You should have actually crossed 3 lanes of traffic and been on that path, not on the road at all. This goes to the heart of the Highway Code campaign we were fighting earlier this year and continue to fight, that was going to include a new bit of advice saying that cyclists should use cycle paths for facilities where they're provided. We were very worried, and still are worried, that that's going to prejudice cyclists who are hit by motorists. And I think we're right. I mean, that kind of thing's happening already.
Now, this particular case is set in Telford, and it is of importance to Telford, but it doesn't have set a precedent nationally yet.
No, but the worry is that should this new wording be included in the next edition of the Highway Code, that this will be the norm. This will start happening when cyclists are hit by motorists and find themselves fighting for compensation. That this will become commonplace.
Now, I've come down here to Stannington in a car, and I've been on the motorway in which I've been obstructed by these extremely large trucks. Now, would there not be a case using the same kind of logic as this judge to say, well, they've obstructed me on the road, and shouldn't the police be taking these truck drivers to court.
You would think so. I mean, if you look at Daniel's case, he was overtaken by two cars that were performing an illegal manoeuvre. They crossed the white band in the centre of the road, but the police officers in their panic car thought that it was more important to stop Daniel, and we all know he had every right to be on that stretch of road, and very experienced cyclist was doing what he needed to do. He was taking up space in that lane on the approach to a roundabout because he knew that it was unsafe for cars to overtake him. A lot of people who cycle regularly, more experienced cyclists, will know exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, we're fighting as much as we're fighting the new wording of the Highway Code. We're fighting an attitude that's held by the general public and unfortunately by the police and the judiciary that cyclists don't have a place on the road.
This could just be a judgment that's relatively easily overturned, do you think? I mean, this is something. This will go to appeal? Does Daniel want to take this to appeal?
Well, I'd start off by saying that personally, I was very surprised that he lost the case. I thought it would have been thrown out before it even came to court. But yes, I mean, we certainly feel there's very strong grounds for appeal. Daniel is, as we speak, talking to his legal team, and it may well be that the CDF, Cyclist Defence Fund, gets involved again. But
what is the process? Because presumably Daniel's shell-shocked by all of this. It must have been a fairly harrowing process for him to go through in the first place. He may not want to go through this again, and
he's a very keen cyclist. He's getting a lot of support from CTC, a lot of support from the Cyclist Defence Fund, and I've spoken to him this week, and he himself is very keen to get this overturned. The more worrying side to this is that he told me on the phone that friends of his, who again experienced cyclists, are asking him, should I be on the road? Should I be using that particular stretch of road? And I told him that would be the worst possible outcome of all of this. If it was stopping people from cycling and stopping people from cycling in the way that they have done, then that would be terrible.
Has Daniel been heartened by the enormous amount of verbiage that's gone on about this? There's lots of forum talk. There's media coverage.
It's not just the forum talk and the media stuff, but I spoke to him 4 days after the court decision, and the contributions to the CDF had already passed £4,000, and that I think was a really tangible way of him knowing that people were behind him and behind the CDF and behind the work that CTC is doing to support him.
So what's the next step? What happens? How do you lodge this appeal?
Well, I mean, I think the process, the system is in place to we've got a very, very experienced legal team who are supporting him, and it's a matter of him. I imagine over the next few days they'll be announcing that they're going to take it forward, and yeah, I certainly hope that the appeal goes forward and that we can overturn this.
What's the likely timescale?
Not entirely sure, but I mean things will happen fairly quickly, I would imagine.
I mean, this is a judge who, as in your press release, he has form. He has had rather bad measures overturned by upper judges.
He's no stranger to controversial decisions. He was some of the people listening may remember the case of the police officer who was road testing in inverted commas a new unmarked Panda car without lights, without sirens, and he was clocked in 159 miles an hour.
And then 80.
And then which actually more serious. It's worse. Yeah. But he was let off by this particular judge only to have that decision overruled by a higher judge, actually, who was critical, actually, in no uncertain terms, actually, of his other decision. And there are various other cases he's been involved with. So it may be that Daniel was a little unlucky coming up against this particular judge, but that doesn't make it any less important that we challenge it and that we overturn it.
And what can cyclists do right now? There's no worries about keep riding on the road. Do you, for instance, back the critical mass that's been talked about for this particular road?
Well, I think, as I said before, I think the worst thing that could happen would be for cyclists to change the way that they're riding. You know, I mean, people should continue to ride. People should, if they can spare a few pounds, donate to the Cyclist Defence Fund, because this is exactly the kind of case for which it was set up. And people can join CTC if they're not already members, because we have the country's largest campaigning team, and we're really getting stuck into this.
Yannick, give me the two websites here for the Cyclist Defence Fund and for CTC.
You can go to ctc.org.uk or cyclistdefencefund.org.uk.
And then you can pay by PayPal on that?
Yeah, it's very easy. And, if everyone just give what you can. I mean, if everyone who cycles regularly in the country gives £1, we'll be well on our way.
I put 20 quid in straight away.
Done,
that was just, this cannot be allowed to go through. It's bonkers.
Yeah. Well, when we want to get involved in something, we cyclists are a pretty dynamic bunch, and we've shown this. Over 11,000 people signed up to the Highway Code campaign, and I think they'll be up against a pretty good force.